Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning entertainment podcast. In this episode, we'll be discussing mysteries, movie stars, Glass Onion, Wednesday, but our topic this week is really about murder mysteries. What makes a great murder mystery? The game is afoot. My name is Aaron Peterson. Joining me today, my fellow host, John Davenport.
Hey, buddy. How you doing today?
Wonderful. And Amanda, hang on, what's her last? Is it Sink? Is that what your name?
Hello. She hath returned.
Who?
Am I?
Is it Sink though? I mean, is that right? Is that correct? It's Amanda Sink. Is that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. S-I-N-K, like your kitchen sink.
Okay. And have you podcasted before? Is this?
I have, yeah, for a few years, intermittently, more like on an occasional basis this year. So.
All right. So you're like pinch hitting for Troy because he couldn't be here this week. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, essentially. No, he fills in for me. That's how it works.
Wow. He's going to love to hear that. Well, welcome back. You haven't been here, and I don't even remember the last time you were here.
Don't even check the record, please. I'm here, though. I'm here.
Welcome back.
I'm in my new home in Colorado.
Good. Make sure to give stalkers your address, too, while you're at it. Be sure to give them if you could.
The state isn't going to give them where I live.
Just saying. Troy won't be here because Troy is actually in New York City. I think he's on a Broadway festival run. He's seeing all the Broadway shows.
That sounds nice.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. It sounds great. Delightful. He blew us off for Broadway.
I mean, Broadway might be better.
I would imagine it probably is, if I'm really being honest.
He is a theater kid, so.
He is.
He is a theater kid.
Amanda, do you want to, and I mean this with all love, in a very succinct fashion, can you recap like what's been going on?
Well, in my 2022 year, I have moved I drove cross country between Illinois and Colorado quite a bit. Then I moved from Illinois to Texas, and then I moved from Texas to Colorado, where I'm at now for a new job that I got. I got divorced. I'm in a different relationship. I got a puppy. I think that covers most of it.
I like how you said I got divorced and I'm in a different relationship, as if people might think you went back to the same one. Because that's
back to that same relationship. Like, we got divorced. Marriage just wasn't working for us, but relationship was.
So weird. So weird. All right. Well, good.
No, I just wanted to specify.
I'm glad you have things settled. I got nothing new. John, you got anything new?
What? I've been here the whole time. What the hell?
That's true. Good call. You know what? Let's jump into we touched on this subject back in May, if the movie star era has ended, but God damn it, Tarantino had to come out and start talking because let's be honest, he just never stops talking. He's just a guy that's a wind-up toy. Well, he went out and fired up the geek universe by his words, and he's been under fire for the past week. I'm going to read through his entire quote, and I kind of want to hear what you guys think about this. And if you want to hear the full context of what we talked about, just go back to our Movie Stars Dead episode back in May. There's a possibility it might be inserted at the end of this episode, but no promises. We'll see how it goes.
Jesus Christ, very hit or miss with our commitments here, aren't we?
I just don't know what I want to do right now. You know what? I will add it to the end of the episode for those that don't want to have to go spend 13 seconds to go find the episode. Is that fair?
Okay. Maybe just insert it here, though.
No.
Not at the end.
You want to hear it? You wait till the end. You wait till the end. You wait till everything else is done. That's how this is going to work.
Okay. As long as we get commitment from you, that's all that matters.
I mean, this could all be edited out by the time you hear it. So here's what Tarantino's quote was. Part of the marvelization, it's not a word, Quint, of Hollywood is you have all these actors who have become famous playing these characters, but they're not movie stars, right? Captain America is the star, or Thor is the star. I mean, I'm not the first person to say that. He's not. Anthony Mackie said this years ago. I think that's been said a zillion times, but it's like, it's these franchise characters that become a star. I'm not even putting them down, frankly, to tell you the truth, but that is one of the legacy of the marvelization of Hollywood movies. Look, I used to collect Marvel comics like crazy when I was a kid. I'm giving you the full quote because I hate all these people taking little hit and miss blurbs. There's an aspect that if these movies were coming out when I was in my 20s, I would totally be fucking happy and totally love them. I mean, they wouldn't be the only movies being made. They would be those movies amongst other movies. But I'm almost 60, so yeah, I'm not quite as excited about them. My only axe to grind against them is they're the only things that seem to be made. And they're the only things that seem to generate any kind of excitement amongst the fan base or even the studio making them. That's what they're excited about. And so it's just the fact that they are the entire representation of this era of movies right now. There's not really much room for anything else. That's my problem. What say you, Amanda?
There is merit to some of what he's saying, in my opinion. I certainly can see how some of these actors they've definitely gotten celebrity because of their movie, but it's not necessarily like Chris Evans is playing Captain America and he's the talking point. It's a Captain America movie, or it's a Black Panther movie, or it's, an Iron Man movie, those types of things. I can see where he's coming from in that respect, but at the same time, they've rose to fame because of those roles, because those roles became so iconic. And outside of like Batman and Spider-Man, most characters did not see the level of fame that they have today until those actors played them and made them something of value and of merit. I shouldn't say of value because they were cool before, but beyond just comics, they reached into different audiences and different individuals who maybe wouldn't have acknowledged superheroes otherwise. But this whole concept that they're the only things being made, that's just simply not true. Are they the only things being talked about in the media? I would say that they get significantly more attention for sure. Mm-hmm. But I would also argue that there are plenty of other films that are being made. They're just predominantly being streamed versus being shown in theaters. And theater showings, big box office budgets and blockbusters, those are the ones that are going to attract the media. So really what I feel like needs to happen if he wants this problem solved, and I do agree that there is, a ratio of more people interested in superhero films than any other type of film at this point, the general consensus of the population, not just big movie fans. But I think you have to require that of the media and the film's marketing.
How do you require that of the media?
Hold on.
Okay.
Require the media and the promoters of the films, the marketing teams, to do their job. And that's where we should be putting our attention, because the movies are still being made. They're just not being talked about. And so that is up to those journalists and critics who have the ability to access those other films and make them important and rise to fame. But Quentin Tarantino, of all people, shouldn't be complaining. His movies are doing just fine.
Well, you know what he needs to do is get off his ass and make another movie, because I hate to break it to him, but there are lots of people demanding that kind of adult entertainment that he makes. He's just not, he's comfortable. I get it. He's in Italy, I believe, or Iran. I don't remember where he is. He's overseas somewhere.
Something with an I, apparently, in completely different areas.
Yes, completely. But he's comfortable. He's married. He has a kid or two kids, and he's relaxing. So, I get he doesn't want to make them, but there are people that will
subscribing to OnlyFans of feet.
I could see that happening. There are filmmakers like Nolan, Tarantino. There are definitely, Cameron's probably still on that list, filmmakers who people will always come out and pay to see what they come up with. I don't think Spielberg's on that list anymore, and he hasn't been for some time. But there are still the Tarantinos of the world, the Nolans of the world. People will pay for their movies if they make them a little bit more frequently. But these are directors who take
Clint Eastwood.
Nah, he used to be. His movies aren't really bringing
Oh, no, he still gets them seniors
No,
out.
box office wise, his last movie flopped pretty hard. He's not a guarantee anymore. And he's had a couple flops in a row. So he's not doing as well as he used to either. But then there are movies that are doing very, very well. Knives Out 2, Glass Onion, which we're going to talk about later, played for a week in limited release, did like $15 million. And it was only playing in 600 theaters, which that means the per theater average was great. It would have done phenomenal if it was released nationwide and in 4,000 screens like every other big release is. It wasn't. I feel like sometimes you have studios that are cutting back on taking the chances because there have been too many misses in the adult movie market. And that's where I think some of the problem is. But I don't think he's wrong. I don't think necessarily just because you're in a big Marvel hit movie that you're a movie star. I don't think Brie Larson is a movie star. I don't think Chris Hemsworth is a movie star. Go look at his box office anywhere outside. To me, you have to be able to open a movie just on your own name. You know, Chris Hemsworth can't do it. He's had multiple opportunities. He can't open a movie without Thor being attached. He's just not a movie star. Doesn't mean he's not talented. Doesn't mean he's not great. Just means people aren't going to go see a movie because his name's on it. You know, and there aren't many of those left. We like I said, we talked about it in May. The era of the movie star is pretty defunct.
Yeah, it is pretty defunct. However, there are a lot of people, a lot of those characters only work because of the people who are playing those characters. It would be hard to find. It's hard to find another Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. did it so well and so perfectly that if somebody else tries to get into that role, it's going to be a shit show for that poor person, because they're constantly going to be reminded of, well, how do you feel about what you're doing against what Robert Downey Jr. did and whatever. You look at Captain America. To keep Captain America in the Marvel universe, they switched to a different version of Captain America versus trying to recast Steve Rogers, because Chris Evans personified that role so well. Even with a Marvel character already under his belt, you forget the fact that he was Johnny Storm for the Fantastic Four. So, but you also mentioned Brie Larson. Brie Larson is forgettable as Captain Marvel. Sorry, Brie. Still love you, sort of. Chris Hemsworth is only really good at being Thor and not much else. I
don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all.
Hold on. He's got great comedy chops and he's got great acting ability, but for some reason he just doesn't have the draw. So I'm agreeing with what you were saying. Go ahead.
I don't think it's fair to say that he's only good at Thor. I don't agree with that at all. I think he's been good in everything he's done. He's just not someone that people want to pay to see. I don't think this current audience, I don't even want to say, like some people love to say Gen Z or millennial. I don't think it's a Gen Z or millennial. I think it's a content thing. I think there's so much content. People are only really flocking to things they recognize right now. Nostalgia, franchises, characters, that sort of thing. So they're going to that as opposed to names. Names don't draw people in because they've got too much opportunity anymore. There's only a real small handful of actual movie stars. And everybody has a different opinion of what that means. But the bottom line is you have to be bankable and you have to draw people in. Bankable means your movie's going to make money just because you're in it, even if it sucks. That was the biggest era of the movie star, is when movies that sucked made a fortune. Stallone movies, Schwarzenegger movie, didn't matter how good the movie was, it made money. Mark Wahlberg had it for a little bit. You know, a lot of actors have been movie stars here and there, but there's very few still in existence today. Leo's one, Leo DiCaprio, his movies always seem to make money or bring attention no matter what. Mm-hmm. He's very, very choosy. Denzel Washington can still open a movie. Will Smith, despite recent events, I don't know if he's still technically a movie star. You know, we'll see in the next year or so. But, I mean, he's been the most reliable movie star the last 20 years, I would say. He's had a few misses here and there, but the guy's legit. I mean, there aren't many of those people left on the planet. So I don't think Tarantino's wrong. I really don't. I don't go see Marvel movies because of who they cast. Maybe Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool is probably the exception, right? That's one I went to. I want to see Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. That is amazing. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Now that would work for me, but it wouldn't the first movie. So that movie made him a movie star, but I would still say he's fairly bankable, but movie star? I don't know. It's debatable.
Can we also acknowledge that every single decade has there's a different era of movies, and this isn't something new. It just means that our era right now is the Marvel, the superhero era. Like in the 80s, you referenced the Stallone and Arnold movies. Both of those fall into the same era of 80s machismo, masculine, action-packed flicks. Like that was what the 80s were. That's what people paid for. And
the 70s were down and dirty and gritty. 90s were very, grungy and plaid for some reason. Yeah.
I mean, each decade, each period has a different type of film that has kind of superseded all others. And granted, I will say that the superhero era has lasted more than just one decade. It's been about 12, 13 years now since Avengers became the Marvel Cinematic Universe really came to fruition. And so it's taken precedent for a little bit longer than some of those other eras, but it's really no different. And so I'm not going to, I understand that there's frustration in trying to get people to flock to your type of movie when you make something that's against the grain for this current era. But at the same time, like, this is just part of it. This is part of the ebbs and flows of movies. And who knows what the next era is going to be. It's really a condition, a circumstance of real world events. And right now, people want to escape as much as possible. And superhero movies do that for us. They are the furthest thing from reality that we can get to, aside from being in outer space.
What I love are people that jump on, well, all superhero movies are dog shit just because they don't like them. That's insane. It's just, I mean, it's just nonsense. I don't agree with it at all. You can love all kinds of movies. That's why we did this podcast many, many years ago to begin with, is because we love all kinds of movies. And superhero movies are what's popular now. That will change. It always changes. You know what? I hate to break it to you, but nobody's talking about horror movies are still super popular. They've ebbed and flowed as well, but right now they're super popular. Some of the most reliable box office hits of 2022 were horror movies. So the idea that it only stops at Marvel is silly. And I feel like Tarantino is only saying that because I believe his brain stops at 1979. Like, I firmly believe that's where there's a shutoff valve.
100%.
Yeah. And so, he doesn't love movies later on, and especially superhero movies like he did. And he does kind of come across as guy on the lawn saying, get off my grass. And I hate to say that because I love Tarantino, but just because you don't like them doesn't make them wrong. And I'm kind of tired of hearing this argument. On the same token, it doesn't mean we should trash Tarantino. He still makes great films. He's very revered. The guy knows more about film than probably any filmmaker working currently. I mean, it's hard to not respect the guy and his craft, even if, he has an opinion that I don't always agree with.
The common denominator that I'm noticing about the famous individuals, famous directors who are coming out of the woodwork and making these statements of frustration are ones that have seen years, decades and decades of prominent success, like huge success. Martin Scorsese is another one. I mean, he's the one who I think we all think of when we hear this topic and complaints about superhero movies. He's
like that triggered meme every time somebody talks about comic book movies. Apparently, he's got to have a thought to weigh in with.
Yeah, but it's ironic to me that these directors who've had some of the most successful careers that you could even imagine, and in every time that they made those movies, almost every time, they were working against the grain a little bit. So this isn't a new condition for them. And it really just feels so, to me, I'm frustrated by hearing these rich, successful directors whom I love complaining about the circumstances that they've thrived on just fine and really have no effect on them. Their movies are going to be just fine. Quentin Tarantino puts out a movie, his movie's going to be just fine. He's going to make money. Mm-hmm. And it's really just these smaller directors, and maybe he wants to speak on behalf of them, but I don't feel like he's really had any conversation with them, or he's not brought their thinking into the forefront. It's not about independent filmmakers. It's just kind of a woe is me is the way that these complaints are coming across to me. Now, at the same time, I would also say that the media seems to be taking these so out of context and making them think pieces and something that's more of merit than just conversations, and them just saying like, hey, this is just the way it is, which is what I think the majority of what Quentin Tarantino was trying to say in the beginning.
What I wish they would do, I just wish these guys, Scorsese, Tarantino, Nolan, Spielberg, whoever, just stop like tearing down these things that they don't make and they're not enjoying. Because I always think, well, what an ancient thing to say. I don't like it, therefore it shouldn't be popular. That's essentially what the theory is. That's nonsense. You build up the filmmakers you want people to go check out. Promote them, talk them up, say, hey, these movies are great, but also there's these movies. You go check these out. They're on video. Do that. Instead of trying to tear something else down to build up indie films, rise those indie films to the top. Your voice will get clicks.
And I will also to defend superhero movies, the MCU and the DCU. Both of them have incorporated new experiences that have not happened before, which is so significant and of merit. Not to mention, they've given so much opportunity to directors that it's not like they're pulling in Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino, for example, into all of their movies. They're expanding who they bring into those roles, both as actors, directors, producers, that sort of thing. Now, they do have some of the favorites that they tend to go to where the characters, obviously, you're not going to replace Captain America from Chris Evans to another actor. But if you think about some of these directors that this was more their first big hit, like significant hit, how is that not a value? Why is that less of value to us?
It's a good question. You call Tarantino and you ask him. See if he'll take your calls. And
if he has my number, I'm not going to ask him this question.
So it could
also
when I
can expect his next movie.
Ireland. It could be Iraq. It could be. All right. Let's move on to reviews. We've got two things to talk about. One is the reinvention of Wednesday Addams. Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun. While attending Nevermore Academy, Wednesday Addams attempts to master her emerging psychic ability, thwart a killing spree, and solve the mystery that embroiled her parents 25 years ago. Now, I've seen the first couple episodes, but Aaron finished the whole season.
Damn right.
And I do want to ask you first and foremost, what do you make of the new casting and those that have returned? So we've got Jenna Ortega as Wednesday, Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia, Luis Guzman as Gomez, Gwendoline Christie as Larissa. We've got Thing and Christina Ricci returning, but Christina Ricci has a bit of a different role, of course.
Wouldn't it be crazy if she showed up and her name was Wednesday Addams at the school as well? That would be funny. That would be wild. All right.
Like I'm a little surprised that we're considering Thing as being a returning character.
Thing is such a big character.
He's a big
I know.
character.
I know it is, but it's not necessarily a returning character because who's playing Thing? Who's the person that came back and said,
a thing. Thing is just a thing.
Thing is a full-on performance. Like somebody is that hand model.
Hell yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. I get it, but you can't say it's a returning character and compare it to the fact that Christina Ricci is coming back as a different character.
I really don't appreciate you diminishing their journey. I think right. They're on their own journey.
I'll let you get back to review.
The character is returning. The casting may be different of who the hand model is.
The casting is different. Yeah, they have CGI now. I don't know how they did it back in the old times. So
somebody really chopped off a hand and then puppeteered it. Sure.
In terms of the cast, I mean, it is really cool having Christina Ricci here because she played Wednesday Addams in the movies, and she's so she's so closely attached to that role in her entire career. And it's, I think, very cool to have her back in Tim Burton's world because Tim Burton is behind this. He directed 4 of the episodes. She's great. Her her character is, a new character. You don't want to say too much about that because I sure don't want to spoil anything, but she does a wonderful job as always. I'm a big Christina Ricci fan, have been since I was a kid. And,
since
for
Caspa.
reasons. Gwendoline Christie is wonderful as Principal Larissa Weems. She is basically running the Nevermore Academy, which is where Wednesday is sent to go after she drops some piranha in the pool. Big no-no in regular school, apparently. So she's sent here as punishment. This is where her mother Morticia went. She is amazing in the role. I just love her because 100%. She has, I don't know if you guys saw The Sandman on Netflix, but she pops up as Lucifer. Did. Yeah, she pops up as Lucifer in there.
Totally.
And she was so perfect. Or not was it Lucifer? Yes, she's Lucifer.
She was Lucifer.
And she was so perfect. I mean, she just shy of, twirling her mustache. I mean, she's always so close to that, but she walks that line and she just speaks with such a cadence that really just carries her performance. And I love her because you don't know exactly whose side she's on at all times, but you always know that she wants the best from Wednesday. I feel like that just comes across in her performance. Like she expects it and she demands it and she wants to see the best in Wednesday Addams.
Agreed.
And then you've got, who else is in here? Morticia.
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
She's perfect. I think she's perfectly cast.
She is.
I absolutely adore her already, but in that dress, I adore her twice as much. Now, when it comes to Gomez, no. I can't say no enough. As many Tim Curry no's as I can get out there because no. It does not work. I understand people want to throw it out there. Oh, he looks like the comic version of Gomez. Surely. He's not suave ever. I never believe him to be a guy that she would be in love with. And whenever they're together, it just feels awkward. And it just doesn't work. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work. Thankfully, they have stuff where they're apart and it works a little better when he's on his own. But when they're together and they're supposed to be, I love you, my amor, and all that stuff, it's just not, doesn't click. The chemistry is just not
I didn't
there.
buy into their relationship as much either.
No,
and I think
struggle.
that's the issue that you're alluding to.
Absolutely. But who does nail it, shocked me how much, and we've talked about her on this show several times over the past year and a half, 2 years. The Fallout,
We're a big
great movie.
Ortega fan.
Yeah, big Jenna Ortega fan. She was on Scream. The Fallout, fantastic movie. It's on HBO Max. She was in You first season. She's just a very talented up-and-comer, and she takes Wednesday Addams by the ponytails and delivers exactly what you want. She's dark. She's diabolical. She's self-aware, self-assured. She's confident. She doesn't suffer any fools. She won't let anyone else tell her what to do. She's going to do things her way, and she's going to get it done. I absolutely loved her in this role. And special shout out, because I didn't really mention her, is Emma Myers as Enid Sinclair, which is her roommate. They have a nice balance of yin and yang, because Wednesday is very much dark and dour at all times, and Enid is like just a ray of sunshine and joy.
Literally, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned one of the things that I wanted to talk about, which is the quick-witted dark humor is truly one of the best aspects of Wednesday as a character. And for me, Jenna Ortega completely lived up that portrayal.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about the writing we kind of talked about the portrayal already, but how do you feel about the writing for her character?
Well, I think a lot of it is based on her performance. I mean, her delivery is very, very dry and dark, and she's got a great dance scene that she choreographed, which, is worth looking into if you really enjoyed it. It's kind of quacky and fun. There's little moments where she's digging in the grave in one scene, and her eyes just light up and a smile comes over just because there's dead things there. And it's just, that's a performance thing. But in terms of the writing, I adore how every time I think she's going to say something that humans would say, she doesn't. She doesn't.
Yeah.
She really enjoys, murder and death and the sweet embrace of the end. She's your favorite goth girl.
There's a moment in the first episode where somebody gives her a black flower and it's a black dahlia, and she's like, "Oh, that's my favorite murder mystery."
My favorite unsolved murder. Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite unsolved murder. She's really great. I think
and the writing is sharp too.
Between the two of us, I think we knew Jenna Ortega would handle whatever she's given. But I agree. I think the writing was just really stellar, and the moments are perfect. The production is wonderful as well.
I probably felt differently than you because I did grow up with the Addams Family movies. I don't know if you watched them or not, but I
did
love those movies, especially the first one. The second one's just okay, but she was the magic in both of those movies. Raul Julia, sure. Angelica Houston, sure. But Christina Ricci, that's what I always think of if somebody mentions those movies.
Yep.
Her performance is iconic. And to rival that, I think is impressive in its own right. And I think Jenna Ortega does rival it. She makes it her
Agreed.
own. Very important.
So last thing I want to ask you about is 8 episodes seems to be your sweet spot, but did this show leave you wanting more?
Okay, here's what I will tell you. In the last month and a half, I have purposely been avoiding binging TV shows. I've just burnt out. There's too much content. I don't have time. I want to catch up on movies. There's so many movies I want to watch. So I'm like, I'm going to go back to movies. And also, I'm tired of things being canceled. I like endings. I love having an ending. It's great. I don't have to worry about it with a movie. I get an ending. This came out, and listener of the show, Paula, who mentioned it in our Facebook group and raved about it. And I said, I knew about it, but I've kind of been putting off TV shows. All right, I'll check out an episode or two. Next thing I know, I'm watching all 8 in the same day. I haven't binged a TV show in months, like months. I haven't watched a TV show in one day in months. I absolutely loved it. By the end, I was ready to rewatch it. And I was already checking, Google alerts to see if we got a season 2 announcement yet.
Awesome. I know we typically don't put a price tag on
Sure we do.
The TV shows.
We do. You just haven't been here in a while. Yeah, we have done that.
Oh, you're right. I forgot the format. If the full price of admission were $10 to stream this on Netflix, God, don't we miss those prices? What would you pay for Wednesday?
I would pay $9, man. I think it was absolutely great. I'm pleasantly surprised and blown away. And like Jenna Ortega she's at the top of my list for young actresses. Let me tell you.
Agreed. And now we can move on to the one that Aaron was looking probably most forward to this entire year, which is Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. It is the height of the pandemic in 2020, and rapscallion detective Benoit Blanc, who's played by Danielle Craig, is bored. His baths stretch on for days as he depressingly communicates with several delightful surprise guests. But one day, fate intervenes when Blanc receives a curious box of puzzles that ultimately ends in an invitation to a murder party game on a picturesque island thrown by billionaire Miles Braun, who's played by Edward Norton, where he will serve as the intended victim. The purpose of the gathering is to both announce to his friends that Braun will be unveiling his revolutionary power source, Clear, to the masses while simultaneously partying in Braun's coveted Glass Onion, an elaborately stunning glass bachelor pad for billionaires in the shape of an onion. Oh, and he thought it would be a grand idea to bring together his closest quote-unquote friends, who each seem to have a motive for actual homicide, for a pretend murder party. One that eventually goes awry when an authentic death occurs. Those are Aaron Peterson's words in his spoiler-free review that's available on thehollywoodoutsiders.com.
What do you mean, murder?
Murder. It is no surprise that mysteries are your favorite genre, Sir Peterson, and Knives Out was your favorite film of 2019. Sequels are almost never as good as the OG, at least in my opinion. But how do you feel Rian Johnson's Glass Onion fares against Knives Out as a whole, but specifically the unraveling of the murder mystery?
It's tricky to talk about that because you don't want to give anything away, right? I don't want to ruin any of the actual mystery. No, I won't. It's going to be on Netflix December 23rd, by the way. December 23rd, so keep an eye out. My going into it, I didn't know what was going on because I, unlike many people, I didn't watch the trailer for Glass Onion. I had no idea what any of this was. I just knew who the cast was, and that's all I knew. I didn't want to know anything. I didn't want to see a screenshot. I didn't want to know anything. I loved the first movie so much. I just wanted to absorb it. There very much is multiple twists at play here. It is very much akin to the Knives Out formula. On the same token, it's completely different. It takes a good hour before a murder occurs. That's completely different. Like in the first movie, that's what brought Benoit Blanc there to begin with. Here, there's a lot of buildup. There's a lot of setup. There's a lot of building to who's going to be the victim. At this point, you just had no, so that's a mystery in itself. And then there's a couple turns. One turn I knew really, really well, and I called it as soon as it happened. So that one wasn't a big surprise. But the majority was very, very well plotted, extremely tight, a little bit of fluff. I mean, you probably could have cut 10 or 15 minutes out of the movie, but I was never not entertained. The script is still just as strong. And it was really interesting that Rian Johnson decided to go a different route with Glass Onion than he did in Knives Out in terms of how everything unfolds, how the reveals are handled, how the wrap up is handled, and also kind of making it more funny. I would say there's a lot more comedy in this one, and you also get a much better assessment of Benoit Blanc as a detective, because if you remember the first movie, he's kind of a supporting character until the end. I don't know if you agree with me on that, but that's how I saw it. Here, I
agree with that.
Okay. Here he's front and center. Here he's leading the pack, and you also get a feel for exactly how great a detective he is. There are several times where he's solving things like that just with the snap of his fingers, and it's just like, how did you put that together? And then he'll tell you how he put it together, and it's very Sherlock Holmesy. So it's something that I absolutely adored, because that is my sweet spot. Sherlock Holmes is the first book I ever read page to page, cover to cover, and it's always stayed with me. I love a good murder mystery, especially one that isn't too woven in cliches.
That's awesome. The one thing that I like you, I did not watch the trailer, and so reading about what the synopsis is, I was a bit surprised that it is tethered to the real world in terms of the 2020 pandemic. So how do you feel about that?
At first, I hated it. If I'm being completely honest. The one thing I do when I watch a movie is I want to escape. I can figure we all agree we don't want to live again in a 2020 environment. So going back there kind of scared me, but then I realized it's a very, very minor plot point. It's just more of, here's a reason why Benoit is going to this remote island. Here's a reason why they're gathering at this island is because, we can't gather in any other public place. So, I mean, it kind of worked to the movie's advantage. It was completely unnecessary, though. It really has no benefit that I could see to the script.
And do they talk about it periodically throughout the film?
No, not really. When he's in the bathtub and he's talking about he's just being bored because he can't go out and solve cases because of the pandemic. It's talked about a little there. When they're getting on a boat to go to the island, there's some verbal back and forth because they need to get checked and stuff like that. It's very, very minor, though.
Okay.
And then it's kind of an afterthought.
Interesting. Any surprise cameos or guest appearances that shine? Because I think one of the things that was so stunning about the first movie, about Knives Out, is that the cast was just stacked, loaded, locked and loaded. How'd you feel about this one? And did we have any surprises?
Yeah.
Don't say who they are, but.
No, I'm going to tell you exactly who they are. I've got them listed out. You can Google it if you really want to know. But I will say, when he's in the bathtub in particular, there are two notable talents that come up that are no longer with us that were really a fun ad. They're just delightful.
Betty White.
I'm not going to tell you who it was.
Oh,
That's the whole point of not spoiling something. But very, very just beautiful there. And there's actually a couple cameos where characters pop up and play very, very minor characters that mean nothing to the story. They're just very famous actors that apparently decided to pop in. It's wild. So there are some fun characters. The actors in particular, you've got Daniel Craig, obviously. Edward Norton plays Miles Braun, who's definitely a play on Elon Musk because he's kind of a billionaire who thinks he's the smartest guy in the world, but not really is the smartest guy in the world. And then you've got Claire DeBella, who's Catherine Hahn. She's the governor. She's playing kind of against type because she's very dramatic, more so than comedic. You've got a Twitch streamer that's Duke Cody, who's Dave Bautista, and his girlfriend, Whiskey. And then you've got a scientist, Lionel, played by Leslie Odom Jr., who's very good. You've got a vapid model in Birdie J, played by Kate Hudson, who is fantastic. She just is relishing every scene she's in to play this dim bulb. And she's always accompanied by her trusty assistant, Peg, who's Jessica Henwick. And lastly, Andy Brand, who's played by Janelle Monáe, who I have really adored in other movies and have been looking for her to kind of break out into something bigger. And she nails it with this. Absolutely nails it.
That's wonderful. I do love her also.
Oh, and she's got so much to do. She has so very similar to Ana de Armas in the first movie. There's just a lot of complexity to her character, and she just handles it so well. I'm
going to read a couple of excerpts from your written review.
Oh,
and
sweet.
Only because I know you wrote this review so quickly after you saw the movie. I want to see if all of this still resonates with you.
Mm-hmm.
In an era where audiences are desperate for any original entertainment, this Glass Onion delivers in layers.
Yes.
And then Glass Onion is a worthy sequel to one of the best films in recent memory and an exciting indicator of what is still to come for renowned detective Benoit Blanc.
Yes, I agree with that. One, I like that line. I'm proud of that line.
Those were good lines. That's why I brought them up.
But two, yes. By the end of the movie, it made me just wish this was already like a series of 5 films. You know what I mean? I just love what Daniel Craig does with this role. I love how he seems like a dim bulb often, but then he comes across as an absolute genius at other times. So it's a fun, and I love that foghorn leghorn accent that is not reminiscent of any accent I've ever heard, and it kind of goes in and out all the time. I don't care. I love it. So yes, those lines stand.
Okay, so here's what I have to ask you then.
Okay.
Why did you only give it a 9.5 out of 10? What did it need to earn that extra 0.5?
He didn't get an orgasm after he watched it.
Yeah, I did the first time.
He didn't. He might have. I was going to say he might have during.
The first time I got my old face on. No, how do I say it? There's a trope in the movie that is my most reviled trope in any entertainment. Like
maybe don't say that because everyone knows what that is.
No, I have several. Trust me, there's a bunch of them, but there's a couple.
Which one is it? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I've been here for 5 years. What the hell?
Yeah, there's one in there that it always bugs me. I don't even know if I've ever talked about it on the show, but it always bugs me personally. It's just something that I'm like, oh God, not this. But they handled it very, very well. So it's forgiven and the trust is earned back in that respect because it was handled well. On the same token, I would have preferred that wasn't there because it is something I don't like and I feel like it's a little cheap. I don't think it's very cheap, but it's a little cheap. That was
so between that and then unnecessarily bringing the pandemic into it, those were kind of the two things you think that led to the 0.5 reduction.
That, and while I loved Glass Onion, and I seriously, I gave it 9.5 out of 10. I loved this movie. Knives Out was a perfect movie, in my opinion. I can find no fault in it. I can find fault with that trope and with the pandemic plotting. I just don't think those two things are necessary. And I think audiences do not need that in this era. Now, did it take me out of the movie? Yes, when it was first announced, but thankfully it goes away rather quickly. Could have been a little tighter. I mean, there's a couple things. There's a couple bits, but everything still works. It flows. It's fun, and it's different than the first movie.
All right. Well, that is the reviews for Knives Out and Wednesday.
Whoop, whoop.
Or Glass Onion. I should specify, not Knives Out, Glass Onion.
Hope you guys are sick of talking to me or hearing from me, one of those, by now.
Nope, we've got a whole other section of the podcast.
Any recent releases that we have not talked about already? Anything you guys want to add? John, you haven't talked to them. Is there anything you've seen recently they haven't already talked about?
That I haven't already talked about? Well, I finally got to sit down and watch Black Adam over the weekend, and I loved it. I thought it was great. It's not something that like necessarily blew my socks off, but it was something that I enjoyed through and through. It was just a great, solid flick. And of course, when you get to the stinger on it, it just makes it 10 times better, which is a little bit unfair. I didn't realize Sarah Shahi was in this, and I just adore her and everything that she does. So yeah, overall, it was really good.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, and I've been revisiting a couple of older things. For whatever reason, I watched V for Vendetta again, which led me to watch the 2002 Count of Monte Cristo, which is a movie that I love very much. I really enjoyed sitting down and rewatching it again and rediscovering the fact that there was a baby Henry Cavill in that movie, which I guess that's my through line to get me to another good reason why I watched it. And then I've been sitting down and rewatching Prison Break from the beginning. And
okay,
yeah,
it's a good choice.
I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it. You gonna watch it all the way?
It's just random.
Yeah, it's kind of random. Make sure you watch all the way through the Revival series too.
Yeah, I think the Revival series is available where I'm watching it, so I'll get there.
I love Prison Break. It's so stupid. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Like, none of that stuff makes any sense at all.
It is a little stupid.
All of it is like Deus Ex Machina left and right. I don't know how they didn't have a character named Deus Ex Machina to get them through a lot of these things, but you might as well have.
They did. His name was Michael Schofield, though. I mean, that's what Deus Ex Machina.
Aldo Schofield also. Every time how are the guys gonna get out of this? Oh, Aldo's here now to save him. Or Aldo Burrows. That's who he was.
Deus Ex Michelio. No?
There you go.
That was such a reach.
Yeah. You tried.
I was gonna give you the credit. I really was. Until you took the credit away from yourself.
Amanda, what about you?
I started watching 1899, which is really good. I think I might have mentioned that on one of the last episodes I was on, but if not, I wanted to make mention.
It just came out, so there's no way you mentioned it.
Okay. It may have been in our chat. I don't know. Anyway, it's good. You should check it out. I did mention it when we were doing our fall TV preview, so it's worthwhile. I started watching the new season of Dead to Me. I will say that so far it hasn't piqued my interest as much as the previous seasons, but I love Christina Applegate, and so I'll continue to support it and finish out the show, and maybe it'll surprise me.
Has her can I ask you, is her performance noticeably affected by her? She's got multiple sclerosis.
Her performance is wonderful. It is honestly probably still the same, but you can see physically she's a little bit different. She looks different. And so I think that, I noticed it. I was like, oh, she looks kind of different. And I think that you may notice that, but her performance is not affected whatsoever.
Isn't it MS and not multiple? Yeah, it's MS. It's not what you're calling it, which is muscular dystrophy is what she's got, not multiple.
Okay, my apologies.
Yeah, big difference. But
I was just pulling it out of my ass. I knew she had something.
Yeah, one of them turns your back into a question mark, and the other one is your body fighting against you.
Okay, either one sounds pretty awful, John.
Yep.
Well, they can fix the other one. They can't fix the one with your body.
Why are you scolding me? I got it wrong. I apologize.
How dare you get it wrong?
I'm not her physician.
I watched Spirited, which has Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell, and I will say this may be the first Ryan Reynolds movie that I just didn't care for.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
This is the musical Ghost of Christmas Past thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
On Apple TV.
It was just, I think the reason, well, first of all, I didn't realize it was a musical going into it until all the music happened. And I was like, oh, we're in a musical.
That'll get you.
But also, I think it's because Greatest Showman had such great success. We've had all of these other wonderful musicals come onto streaming and
Cats.
Yeah, except for Cats. Fuck Cats. But we've had some really great ones that have come out, and this one I felt like was just trying to play on the successes of Greatest Showman. For some reason, it reminded me of it, but not in a good way. It was the songs were not great, and the singing from everybody was not great. So overall, I did not enjoy any of the music that was happening, and it took me so far out of the movie, and it was very unexpected. I literally turned it off.
Wow.
I think fellow host Troy, I think he said that he really enjoyed it a lot.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure
he loves a good musical.
He's a theater kid.
Yeah, he loves a good musical. He is a theater geek.
Kid.
He's a total theater kid. I wanted to bring up the fact that Troy really loved that because you took a hot steaming dump on it. So
yeah, I know. And normally
I wanted to balance that out a little bit.
Thank you. Normally, I do enjoy musicals. I've enjoyed, I think, pretty much every musical outside of Cats that's come out in the past handful of years.
Butthole's the movie?
Butthole's the live action.
Right.
But yeah, this wasn't for me. I will say one thing that I did enjoy that was very unexpected. I just kind of turned it on HBO looking for something, was The Big Brunch. Have you guys heard of that?
Dan Levy, where it's a
Dan Levy
competition. Yeah, I just saw an episode of that. That is, I don't like cooking shows. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I need to sit down and watch that.
Definitely do it. I think that I want to make it like my Sunday brunch show, like just sit down, have some brunch, mimosas, and watch it.
Right. It's an excuse to make more food. I get it.
Right.
And drink.
I started watching 1899 and I was like, all right, I'm going to get into this. And then I realized how deep it is in the first episode. And I went, I'm going to put it on Prison Break because I don't have the frame of mind for this.
Yeah. That's exactly why I haven't watched more than one episode, is because I feel like I need so much of my brain capacity to connect with the show that I'm like, I want to reserve this for when my brain is healed.
When I finally get to go on a vacation and finally move into my own place, finally get to, have a life, all those things, as soon as it all lines up, like it feels like I'm waiting for the planets to align, I'll start being able to like watch cool shit again and be like, I watched cool shit. But right now it's like, oh, this is cool. I don't know if I have the emotional bandwidth for this.
I won't be watching it at all. So you just let me know how it is. I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm not. It's the reading.
At least you're honest.
It's the reading. And
no, it's the first episode's in English.
No, but it goes back and forth. I have checked into this.
You have to actually, you can change it. There are different ways to listen to it, and they actually made it intentionally that way. It's something that's really cool about it. But I don't mind that I can watch the majority of it in English, and then I have moments where there's all of these other languages that, we may see for just a glimpse of a moment, and then they have the subtitles. But you can listen to like the dubbed version if you prefer.
I can't do dubbed. And excessive subtitles for me, I know people have to yell at me about this. I don't like looking down, looking up, looking down, looking up, looking down.
I'm with you.
I can do it for a movie. Yeah. 8 hours is different. That's a lot more commitment for me. And
that's he doesn't like doing eye sit-ups.
Exactly. I don't like doing eye sit-ups. God.
He doesn't like doing real sit-ups either, but the eye sit-ups are just too much.
That's why he won't go to the strip club either, is because he doesn't like doing eye sit-ups.
This kind of hurts. Okay.
That's funny. That was funny. That was a good joke, John.
So speaking of sit-ups, I did watch some of Welcome to Chippendales with Kumail Nanjiani.
Nanjiani.
Thank you. Whatever. With Kumail Nanjiani.
Eden Patterson. Whatever.
Anyway, he knows I meant him, and he's very good in it.
Whatever.
It's an interesting move or TV show based on the building up of the Chippendales brand, and he's kind of a dark character. It's kind of a going against type for him, which I like. And also, there's a lot of oily guys that make me wish I was going to the gym more often. Also saw Ticket to Paradise with George Clooney and Julia Roberts about a divorced couple whose daughter runs off to Bali to get married, and they're trying to thwart the wedding. They're really good at going back and forth with each other. Like, they're great at barbs. They know how to cut each other down. It was funny. It was charming. It was sweet. I really enjoyed that movie. So if you're looking for something to see with the family, I don't think there's much better than a divorced couple trying to ruin their kid's wedding.
Good sell on that.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally going to watch that bullshit.
That's good. All right, remember, you can always find more information at thehollywoodoutsider.com. Join our Facebook group, The Hollywood Outsider. We're on Twitter at BuyPopcorn. You can also go join our Patreon and support the show. Patreon.com/TheHollywoodOutsider. We have bonus content always on there. Patreon.com/TheHollywoodOutsider. Now let's go to our From the Outside In topic. What makes a great murder mystery? So that's what we're talking about this week. Amanda, what are the ingredients?
First murder.
What?
First murder. It has to have a murder in it, doesn't it?
Yes, you have to have a murder. Okay, so that's the first component.
Murder is a prerequisite to murder mystery. That's for sure.
I'm so glad you're bringing the heat this time, John. Thank God.
I got it. I so got it.
Amanda, what are the ingredients that make a great murder mystery to you? What has to be there for you to say that was great?
I need at least 2 cups of possible murderers, like various people that very legitimately could have committed the crime. I don't want it to feel like there's just really only one person or, I'm not really sure about this. I want to be kind of sold on this person and then that person and then this person. And it's like, but who really could it have been? I need a sprinkle, just a little sprinkle of humor, because murder mysteries can get really dry if you don't have some sarcasm in there. And I've noticed that all of the murder mysteries that I enjoy the most have a bit of humor to it. And then I, of course, like to make sure that the cherry on top is that I did not see it coming. That's what makes it an excellent murder mystery, is if I don't figure it out at the beginning.
John, other than murder?
Well, it has to have murder. That's for sure. There's got to be a lot of things to it, and then a good murder mystery is like what's pornography. And I know it when I see it is really the answer to that, and there's no way for me to sit down and say every aspect of it, because there's the funny murder mystery, there's the serious murder mystery, it goes all over the place as far as how it works and how it is. I can't tell you what makes a good one, but I can tell you. I can and what's funny is that a bad one can have all the right elements to it, but yet still be bad.
I have to have knowledge that by the end of it, I feel like it was intricately plotted by the reveal.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to me that it has to work by the ending. I don't want to have to go back in my brain and go, that doesn't make sense with this thing, or that character did this, that didn't work.
Yeah.
I can't, and it's very hard to do that and get it right. And you cannot leave out pivotal information as a shocker. That is a shitty,
yes!
It's a shitty murder mystery.
Oh my gosh.
Now, if you can weave it into the way that you're laying out the plot, that can work. But if you just in the final reel, some information comes up that we have no idea about, we've never even thought about this as a possibility, and you just well, bam, and then there you go. That doesn't work for me. That will just completely take me out of it.
It's such a cheater move.
It is. It's just, that's your deus ex machina, right? That's just, we need something to make this work. A varied cast of talents that play off each other well. That's kind of important to me, because that helps, I think, fool us pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
A tight runtime. I just don't feel the need for excessive length in a murder mystery. I want to get to the mystery reveal. And, because if it goes on too long, you stop caring about the mystery itself. So those are important parts.
Well, Knives Out is over 2 hours, and you still bought into that by the end. So
because it kept
I don't
moving.
think it needs to be too tight.
No,
it can be a little loosey-goosey.
It just needs to be tight in that it's enjoyable throughout. I was never looking at my watch in Knives Out, not once, and multiple times I've watched it. I haven't looked at my watch yet. That's important. Now, we've said what makes for a great murder mystery. What makes for a bad one?
A lot of those aspects that you brought up, where where Deus Ex Machina is such a pivotal thing that needs to make the story move. When you have actors or characters that just don't carry the story along, there's a lot of those aspects of it. Mostly it has to do with, do the characters you're portraying make up for whatever sort of feeling you're going for, and if everything's working against each other, that doesn't work out well.
I also, a bad one is one where everything, like the reveal, is just complete exposition, where somebody's telling us about what happened rather than having seen those moments along the way. And I think that ties into what both Aaron and I were saying, specifically about making sure that you're intricately plotting that along the way, so that way we're not completely shocked by the end. But if you do that, I'm going to be really pissed off, because I did not sit here and watch 90 to 120 minutes for you to just sit there and tell me what happened. My eyes better have seen something that contributes to that.
Yeah, I better see something. I mean, I can't stand scripts that withhold pivotal information, or just drop it at the end, like we were talking about, or that think they're smarter than they are. If you watch a mystery, where they just think it's a brilliant mystery, but it's really not that brilliant. See How They Run is a movie where I enjoyed it, but it's not as smart as it thinks it is. And often, I don't think the mystery is that big or complicated. And there can be exceptions. Clue is one of my all-time favorite movies, but the whodunit kind of drives me nuts, because if you really, really sit and think about it, each ending is a different character, but they have varying motives. So that's frustrating in most other movies. So you can overcome it. But Clue found a way to really overcome it. And what I mean by that is, like, if Wadsworth wasn't involved in one ending, which he wasn't involved in two of the endings, correct? He shouldn't be involved in any ending, because that kind of changes the whole story, does it not? So To me, that's kind of a little bit of a deus ex machina, but it works because it's playing with the rules of the card game or the board game. And, it's kind of doing its own thing. You can let it fly because it makes for good entertainment. But if you really sat down and try to take it seriously, that would normally drive me insane because you have different rules for different endings.
Also, if you leave any string open and exposed, we haven't wrapped up every plot hole that was part of your storytelling and was part of the journey to coming to the conclusion. If there's one of those, well, what about this? What about that? If I have any of those lingering concerns or something just doesn't add up, you're immediately just nixed in my book.
Oh, I found another one that really drives me insane. If, a lot of times in mysteries and thrillers and where they're trying to piece things together, you'll get somebody that comes into the building of the victim or whatever, and they'll see the knife in their chest and they try to grab the knife and pull it out, or they grab the knife, or they grab some piece of evidence. Screw everybody that's ever come up with any of those scenarios because they're all awful and they should all not be writing. Those are awful. Stop it.
That's fair.
Especially when they're supposed to be really smart. They're the genius that figures it out at the end of the movie, but they couldn't think to not put their fingerprints on a murder weapon. It just it drives me nuts. That drives me nuts.
That makes me crazy when you see somebody who's got a knife in their chest and they're still alive, and then somebody runs up and pulls the knife out.
Right?
Because that's certain to kill them right there. Right.
That's a great idea to pump the blood out of their body, because you should never just so you know, I learned this from backpacking. If you ever get stabbed with anything, you don't pull it out. Leave it in. Secure it, because that's what keeps the blood from leaking, as a rule.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in murder mystery, John, you're talking about when they come into a room and the victim is alive and they don't just immediately go, so-and-so did it. That's really annoying.
Oh, yeah. If they can't muster the strength of saying, like, it was John Smith 5 minutes ago with, like, if I was dying, I wouldn't be like,
I love you.
See, spoiler to Knives Out real quick, but it came out a year ago, so it's not Glass Onion, but the first Knives Out.
Yeah, it's like
that's one thing where I give them a lot of credit, because when Fran, the housekeeper, is dead, she's still alive, but she's obviously been pumped full of morphine. And Marta comes in and she says to her, like, you did this. And we find out at the end, it's Hugh did this. And that was like a nickname. Mm-hmm. That was perfect, because you had the attempt from that person who's dying to say who did it.
Exactly. Yep.
But we just misunderstood or misinterpreted. She misinterpreted.
Oh, yeah, because it was such a throwaway line where the help calls me that, and it just happens to work in that situation. So it's beautiful how that was executed, even though it was like, you did this. What do you mean? Wait, what? How did she? Were you awake? What was going on? Whole scene makes you crazy until the reveal, and then you're like, oh, that's good.
Exactly. So why do you think fans love to watch movies where they have to try and guess who did it? I mean, there are some people. I know people that hate murder mysteries because they don't want to have to try to figure it out. They don't want to think about it. Why do you think people love to try to guess who done it or who's doing it?
I feel like generally the people who enjoy murder mysteries are fairly smart individuals who like to be challenged. And it's an opportunity for them to see if they can outsmart the writer and the director and prove to themselves that they can figure it out. I think everybody has kind of that, not everybody, but a lot of people have that desire to solve something, whether it's like an issue, a problem, they come in and they can figure out how to fix it. And so that's like an intrinsic personality trait that when watching a movie, you're like, I can figure this out. I want to be challenged.
Yeah, I don't know if it has anything to do with the person's actual intelligence, because I've known some people who love murder mysteries but are dumber than rocks.
Okay, people who think that they're smart.
It's funny,
right? I think the perception, the self-identifying as a smart person, which should be illegal anyhow. The self-identifying as a smart person crowd really loves them. The thing is, I believe that people who love going to movies for movies' sake, are the kind of people who love mysteries, because there's an engagement that happens with murder mysteries that doesn't happen with many other sorts of movies. Whereas the audience is a spectator with a lot of movies, the audience for a murder mystery are participants. They are equally as invested as the main character, and that's one of the reasons why the movies that work great are great, because they know they're working with an audience, and they set up the movie in a way that the audience can play along with their main character, and they're not being spoon fed a lot of the bits and pieces that would either lead them on or take them off the trail in a lot of ways. So yeah, that's what I think that makes it so great. Did I answer the question?
That was actually a great explanation.
Sure, it was good.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I thought that was actually very wonderful.
Was it actually?
It really was. Or the whole time I'm like, John, that's a really good point.
Apparently, it was
because
wonderful.
Whenever there's a murder mystery, any type of mystery, the writer does have to play that. The writer and director have to play that for the audience, and they are trying to engage the audience to participate in the solving part of it, because otherwise we'd only be looking at it through the detective's eyes. For us, the audience member, we're seeing the different perspectives from these different individuals and what may lead to the conclusion.
I think also, to build on that, people that love puzzles or puzzle games love murder mysteries. It's just the idea of trying to figure it out before someone you're with. And I agree with John. There's a lot of dumb people. I still remember talking to a friend of mine who is a nice person, and I'm sure is smart in many ways, but not in the murder mystery realm, because they asked me, I don't understand, how did Chris Evans do it? And I just said, okay, I can't help you. I mean, they had a whole reveal.
Okay, I can't help you. Don't ever go to Aaron for help ever. Just for reference, he's not going to.
I mean, go watch the movie. There's a whole reveal. Is what I'm saying. There's a reveal. They tell you how I did it.
Well, my thing is that we actually do this show with somebody who is actually a very smart person. However, their imagination gets away from them every single time. And, a murder mystery turns into, wait, so first of all, they were on the island the entire time. And then there was ghosts and aliens, and and all of a sudden, like, what was a straightforward murder mystery turned into, yeah, but what if there were space aliens involved and time travel? And then all of a sudden you're like, did you watch the same movie I did? Because none of those things were in there.
I don't know who you're talking about. Troy Heinrichs. But yeah, I get you.
I love this.
Yeah. I love it, because we're not picking on Amanda because she's actually here this week. So
I know.
Do they have the same credibility as other films once you know the mystery? That's something that I find interesting. Can you rewatch a mystery and still enjoy it as much?
I think that's why I buy into the humor so much, and why I think that that's a great aspect to include in a murder mystery. So you have something to fall into and fall back to when you do a rewatch. But if the murder mystery was good enough, like if it was a well-told mystery, one where you can rewatch it and try to figure out, like, oh, that's where this happens, or oh, this is where we got that information, those actually make for really great rewatches. But not every murder mystery has that ability.
Yeah, no, it has to do a lot with the cast at that point. Rewatchability, once for me, a lot of times the cast and or the devices they use to reveal things are what primarily the cast, though, is what continues to bring me back. So whether they're using comedy as a device or some sort of genre laden reason for the device, but usually the cast is what gets you to keep on coming back and to define the mystery even further. So Knives Out works because the cast was pretty great. There's a couple other out there that work because the cast is really great. So yeah,
I was going back and looking at some murder mysteries, that I hadn't thought about in a while, and I came to realize that the best murder mysteries are ones that I didn't even think of as murder mysteries when I watched them.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
There's like Gone Girl. That's a murder mystery. Never would think about it.
That's a good choice.
Yeah. Usual Suspects, I would consider that a murder mystery. And
I mean, I have a whole list in front of me of great murder mysteries. So.
I mean, there's a lot. Seven's one where I would definitely not consider that to be a murder mystery. But really, when you come to think about it, it very much is a murder mystery. It is about who is behind these murders and da-da-da-da. But I don't think of it that way. All I think of it is, wow, what a messed up movie with a great ending and what's in the box and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of movies that I didn't consider murder mysteries until I went back and thought about it.
Seven is a Christmas movie.
Right, because of the box. It's a present. I get it.
It's a present at the end. Right?
I get it. The General's Daughter, that's a murder mystery, which I've always really loved that movie and just hadn't thought of it that way because I love, how John Travolta plays that character, not so much the actual mystery of who done it. I mean, I've known who done it and I've watched it, 15 times. So it's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't know what just happened to my voice there, but like I feel that same way about Basic. Basic is a movie that the murder mystery behind it is pretty interesting to me, and the way they tell that story from multiple points of view makes it such a fun sit, and the characters are pretty great. I think about Lucky Number 11.
Yeah, there you go.
Lucky Number 11 is another great one that was just a great murder mystery that you forget the entire time is a murder mystery, where you're like, oh, it's just a great little action-y genre ensemble movie because it has an ensemble cast to it. Then The Gift, which is this, you think you're watching a supernatural laden story, but that's another one that's actually a murder mystery.
Actually, both Gifts, the one with Jason Bateman too, is kind of a mystery.
Yeah,
but you think it's going one kind of movie, and it's actually a completely different kind of movie.
You know what one comes to mind for me is Minority Report.
Yeah. That one's interesting because you're supposed to be working with somebody who can see the murder happen, and then the whole time you're unraveling what the murder was. Kiss, kiss, bang, bang. I can keep going down.
We got a whole the Maltese Falcon, Murder by Death.
Right,
I got a whole bunch of them, and I've watched them for so many. Every Basil Rathbone movie. I've got so many murder mysteries. It's my favorite genre, which means it's the best genre ultimately. Okay. You know what? You guys want to hear some listener comments? We asked in our Facebook group, which is where we usually do our poll, what makes a great murder mystery? And so I picked out a couple of these. Brian Lowry, the twist and resolution has to be well thought out and handled with care. To introduce someone who wasn't revealed until the twist is a major disservice to the viewer. You have to have it be able to see the twist on repeat viewing. If you view a movie a second time and there's no setup for the twist, then the film isn't worth it. 1,000% agree. Yes, you guys as well?
Yep.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Barbara Harris, The Usual Suspects was perfect. Everyone left the cinema happy and felt they got their money's worth and more. There was a fairly basic plot, but the way it unfolded was genius. I don't think there has been anything like it before or since. Even the characters in the story were fooled.
Interesting.
Jennifer Miller, the best is when the whole plot or whodunit is revealed and you rewatch. And in rewatch, you realize it was there all along. It proves a strong story that wasn't trying to trick anyone. Now, that's what I want to ask you guys. When you go back and rewatch it, it has to work when you rewatch it. Yes?
Yeah, it has to make sense. And I have to be able to follow what I really enjoy. What makes me enjoy a murder mystery even more is if upon a rewatch, I notice things I hadn't noticed before that lead to that conclusion. Something that was very just small and minute.
Yeah, ish. I'm going to go back to as long as the cast sucks me in, I don't need it to refeed me the mystery. But there's a lot of times also where I will be focused on enjoying hanging out with these people who just are trying to survive a murder. But then I'll go, oh, wait a minute, that's why that happens that way. Oh my God! And then all of a sudden, I'm really enjoying the movie all over again.
Fair point. Okay. Any other thoughts on murder mysteries before we move on?
Don't murder.
Give me more. I feel like we don't get enough murder mysteries.
Hang on. He said, don't murder. And you said, give me more. So are you trying to, I realize then you threw in.
I'm not advocating for real life murder.
Okay. I'm just clarifying because I was confused. I'm sure some listener was too. The dumb ones who can't figure out that Chris Evans did it.
I really hope that person.
They don't listen to podcasts. It's totally okay.
I don't listen to podcasts, Aaron. They're just too talky for me.
Too talky. All right, share your thoughts on this episode or anything else in our Facebook group, on Twitter, Buy Popcorn, and at our site, thehollywoodoutsiders.com. Next week is our annual holiday special, which is a lot of stuff from previous years, but we're also going to have a new entry in there where we're going to recast the classic Christmas Vacation. So look for that the following week. And thanks everybody for listening. And once again, you can find John's artwork on Insta and at Twitter at rjohndraws, Amanda on Veronica's Marshmallows and Smirk, and at Sink Into This on Twitter, Troy at Troy Heinrichs and The Blacklist Exposed, and me on Presenting Hitchcock and at Aaron Smirks. That's going to do it for this episode of The Hollywood Outsider. But guess what?
What?
We actually talked about if the movie star era was dead back in May, like I said earlier in the show, and I said you could get this little bit. So we're inserting that whole section here so you don't have to go do extra work. So this is basically a flashback. Don't judge us if we changed our opinion on something. It happens. But here's John, Troy Heinrichs, and myself going a bit deeper on this particular topic of our movie stars dead. And remember, the next time you go to the theater, not to see Glass Onion, because it's already gone by the time you heard this, but it'll be on Netflix and at the end of December. Buy popcorn. Have we reached the end of the movie star era? Now, first, before we get into our topic, I got to ask, how do you define movie star? We need to agree on a definition of movie star, or at least I want to hear what you guys think as a movie star. Troy?
I mean, I think movie star is someone who's won an Oscar.
Really?
Someone who puts out a movie, pretty religiously once every 2 years or so. If they can do it every year, even better. Someone that has, you look at their box office returns for a particular actor or actress, then their box office returns are fairly high. I think those are probably some of the key components to be a quote unquote movie star.
Okay, John, how would you
in a
define
traditional sense?
I think it's actually much simpler than that. I just think it's one of those people who still maintain an air of mystery and mystique to them, who are able to draw people to go see their movies, whether it's yearly, annually, whether they've gotten Oscars or not. It's that person that has that magnetism to them that draws people to the theater, and you can't help but like them.
Yeah, I would put it as someone who's enormously successful in film, who, I don't care if you've won an Oscar or not, personally, it just, they have a draw to them. And I agree with the mystique. If everything's out there, it's kind of hard for them to be a movie star, because I just feel like it doesn't work as well. But someone who has been enormously successful for a long period of time, continues to be to this day. You can make some arguments for Tom Cruise and Will Smith and Denzel Washington, Tom Cruise, obviously. Hugh Jackman, I suppose you could make an argument for him.
You said Tom Cruise twice.
Oh, you forgot Tom Cruise.
I said Tom Cruise.
Twice.
You said it twice, so I figured I'd just throw it in one more time.
So much Tom Cruise.
I think you've meant Tom Hanks, who is much better than Tom Cruise.
Yes, I meant Tom Hanks. Did I say Tom? Okay.
There you go.
Well, same guy. They're about the same height, I think. I don't know. One worships Xenu and the other one does not. That's all I know.
One's 4 feet tall and the other one's like 6 foot.
Stop it.
And he worships Zoltan, to be clear.
It's Xenu, man. It's Xenu. Really?
It's Xenu.
It's Xenu.
Or is it Zoltar? Zoltan?
He's rich with thetans. I know that. And he's a delightful actor. I like his roles, but whatever. Okay, so we kind of have how movie stars are defined. Now, I would say that there's an argument that many of them are no longer movie stars, because Tom Hanks hasn't had really a big hit in a long time. Will Smith, outside of Bad Boys, hasn't either, which was the sequel, so I don't really count that. Denzel, I would say, is probably still a movie star, because he's smart enough to where he doesn't release many films. He does it very, very sporadically. Tom Cruise still is. His movies are still making, look at the anticipations for Top Gun Maverick. I wouldn't call a Chris Evans a movie star, or a Chris Hemsworth or Chris Pratt, because their movies are all IP. Outside of IP, they're not really doing huge business.
Because Mission Impossible and Top Gun isn't IP?
I said Tom Cruise counts. I said Tom Hanks doesn't count.
But you just said Chris Evans doesn't count because their movies are IP.
How many movies has he sold on? Like, a movie star to me means your name alone can get you into the theater. Now, Top Gun, sure, it's an IP, but if you don't have Tom Cruise in it, it's not going to sell. If you have somebody else in Captain America, it's still going to sell, because Marvel's going to make it sell. That's the difference. Top
Can you,
Gun.
though?
Top Gun is about
was
Tom
Falcon and Winter
Cruise.
Soldier really that good? I'm just saying.
Yes, it did huge business.
Okay, wait, stop, Troy. Before you even keep, no,
you're just digging
all
a
right,
hole that doesn't
stop.
make any sense.
All right, so let me actually add a little bit of intensity to what Aaron's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Independence Day had Will Smith.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty great. It's probably cheesy and fun in all the great ways. The sequel to Independence Day had Bill Pullman come back and no Will Smith.
Exactly.
I rest my case.
It was also 20 years later, which
But I still say he's not.
recency is a factor.
I don't think whether the slap or no slap, I don't think he's still a popular actor. I don't know if he's still a movie star because his movies started flopping the last few years outside of Bad Boys 2 or 4, 3, whatever the hell number it was. Bad Boys for Life. Bad Boys for
and
Wife.
King Richard, apparently.
All right. So do you remember the first time? Let's start with this and then we'll get back into it.
Well, let's talk Nick Cage then. So
He's no
just
longer a
because
movie star.
Just because his movies aren't like making a ton of money or whatever.
He's definitely no longer a movie star. He's a actor, He's a celebrity.
Yeah, he's sullied his name by a lot of the stuff that he was
So I guess
in.
that's the difference. What's the difference between celebrity and a name that's in the top of your mind and a movie star?
He's still a celebrity.
But he's not a movie star because he doesn't sell movies. His last movie was not a hit. It was a flop. He hasn't been in a hit movie in a long time.
So the definition is the movie does not work unless the star is in the movie.
Exactly. AKA movie star.
That Meta Nick Cage movie, it was a flop?
Yeah, it was a flop.
Oh,
Which is
that
too bad.
sucks. Was it good?
It was very good. Yeah, it was very good. You would know that if you
That's
listened to the
too bad.
podcast that you weren't on.
I don't have time.
Because
for this
apparently just
podcast.
Troy and I realized that it's like every week we do this. You and Amanda are just like, boop, doop, 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 doop. Just saying.
That's only because we have to do the other one every week too.
Just like, I guess we'll see this dick again.
What about Michelle Yeoh? Would she be a movie star now? Because she sells movies.
No,
Who?
No, she doesn't. Michelle Yeoh. No, she doesn't.
Who's Michelle Yeoh?
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Really?
Oh, okay.
Did you just
Got
say
it.
who is? Did you seriously just say that?
I didn't see the movie. I'm in the freaking mountains of nowhere.
She's not new to the world.
It's just me, militias, and just enough teeth to fill one of the malicious heads out here, okay?
Yes. Back to my question. Do you remember the first actor who you saw in your eyes as a movie star and what made you realize that they were? I will start. Harrison Ford was the first person I saw as a movie star because he just kept banging out hit after hit after hit. And he never I never knew too much about him. He was very enigmatic. He was very charming. And he just had that something about him that made me always want to see whatever he was in. So to me, he was the first movie star that I can remember. What about you guys?
For me, it was Jerry Lewis.
Interesting choice.
Yeah.
Why him?
Well, I know when I was growing up, I loved to laugh and I loved things that like caught my attention, and I caught a lot of Jerry Lewis stuff on television, and for whatever reason, I just kind of enjoyed what he did, and I actually just bought the original Nutty Professor just to sit down and watch him do the Nutty Professor again, because that was one of those things that I really loved about his storytelling.
All right. Troy, what about you?
I was going to say Harrison Ford, but someone else took that one.
Well, you can, if it's the same one, then that you can still say.
Well, I mean, when we grew up, in that time frame, it was Indiana Jones, it was Star Wars. I mean, it was like Harrison Ford was everywhere.
The
So
Fugitive. He
Yeah,
had a long run. He had a
long run, Clear and Present Danger.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the other one. What was the other Jack Ryan movie he did?
Patriot Games. Patriot Games. Yep.
Yeah, all those. I mean, all those are great, right? Steve Martin also comes to mind. Like he was pretty well known as we were growing up with some of his comedies, right? Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and Roxanne, and Three Amigos. Chevy Chase would probably be in there as well at the time, because he was Fletch and Lampoons, and
God, I love Fletch.
Michael Douglas was probably in that category as well.
Can I borrow your towel? My water just hit, can I borrow your towel? My car just hit a water buffalo. What? Sorry. I mean,
yeah, Michael Douglas was probably another one in that same
oh,
realm.
yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
So many people have said that Tom Cruise is the last true movie star. And I think why people think that is because he is still very enigmatic. He could do 1,000 people press tour and you don't know anything more about Tom Cruise. He's very, very much a secret. But I would say, Ryan Reynolds, The Rock, Sandra Bullock, they still routinely bring out an audience. I feel like people just know them a little better. So do you believe that Tom Cruise is the last of the true movie stars? Do you feel like this era of the movie star is over? Do you feel like it's still ongoing, but very diminished? Where do you guys stand on this?
I mean, I don't know. Like I consider Sandra Bullock a movie star. Like the minute you say Sandra Bullock, I'm like, boom, I'm there. I'm watching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if it looks, okay at best, you're like, it's got Sandra Bullock on it. It's probably going to be halfway decent. So I would say Sandra Bullock would qualify. I mean, Tom Cruise, other than Top Gun coming out this weekend and Mission Impossible coming out next year, like he hasn't done anything that was like what made him kind of the thing, right? Color of Money, Risky Business, Jerry Maguire. Like he's not really done those small independent things.
Safer
Rain Man.
bets. He's done some safer bets last 10 years.
So I would say he's almost not a movie star anymore because he's just an IP guy. He sells the IP, but I'd like to see him do a little bit more breadth and depth again.
Interesting.
To be a movie star. Like I would even say The Rock is a movie star because at least he has breadth and depth. He does Jungle Cruise. He does, kid movies. He does Fast and the Furious. He's all over the map. He's got range, which I never thought I would say after The Scorpion King.
Hey,
okay, be careful.
Let's go easy on the range.
Word.
He's the same guy in all of those movies. You could literally plug and play them.
Right.
But you are going to see it because he's in it. So
don't disagree.
Well,
he's got infinite charisma.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds, the same thing. He kind of rejuvenated his whole career where, Deadpool saved his career and now he's just huge. On Netflix, he's absolutely huge.
Yeah. That's the argument right there. Ryan Reynolds is a movie star.
Sure.
So no, Tom Cruise isn't the last one.
I don't think Tom Cruise is the last one, and I do agree that there are a few, but I think that the idea of the movie star is waning, and part of the reason why is something we touched on much earlier in the episode is that celebrity is changing, and and talent is, or the idea of what talent is changing, and you have people who are drawing more attention to themselves than movie stars can off of social media apps. And they're making more money than movie stars can off of social media apps. So the idea of celebrity comes in as far as who the major group of people that is enjoying whatever product is being out there. And right now you're looking at millennials, Gen Z, and whatever else comes on after that, because Gen X and older don't count anymore as far as what's measuring celebrity and measuring what's a movie star. So that's why I think the idea of movie stars is really waning. Also, celebrities and movie stars can't help themselves but show their ass on TV and find the dumbest hills to die on. So they fall victim or folly to their own bed shitting ways.
I agree. I don't think the era is over, but it's almost over. I think it's over with those people once they lose their popularity. Will Smith, he took a hit with the Oscars thing. I have no doubt he'll win his way back. He just has that kind of effortless charm into audiences' hearts. And if he makes the right kind of movie, I think people love him in action flicks and whatnot. He'll probably if he goes the Tom Cruise route, I think he'll be back in people's good graces. The Rock just has this, he really has a good grasp on what makes a modern day movie star. But in terms of overall, I really think it's waning. I feel like people more and more don't need a big name, maybe a known name, but they don't need a big name to go see a movie anymore. They will go see something if it appeals to them, if it's got a great story, if it's got, if it's something that they love, if it's Marvel. God, they don't even, the reason they got these people on 10 movie contracts and they were, I don't know if they're doing that anymore, because it didn't matter. It didn't matter who is actually wearing the cape because they sell the cape. Star Wars, you don't need anybody famous. It's all IP based. I don't think very many actors, where it used to be probably 20 or 30 actors could sell a movie. Now it's like 5. You know what I mean? And that's how I know that it's waning, because it's just not something that's guaranteed to get butts and seats anymore, because people have too many options and it's really hard to stand out. The Rock is really smart because he utilizes social media. He knows what he's doing and he mastered it. But there's very, very few people that have captured all facets of media like he has. Like he's an anomaly.
Ryan Reynolds.
Him and The Rock are kind of doing the same thing. It's interesting though, because I remember, 15, 20 years ago, certain actors would guarantee like a movie was a hit. They wouldn't have to do much. Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, he might still be a movie star because he doesn't have flops. His movies all pretty much hit.
So maybe he's in the conversation. But but back 20, 30 years ago, man, there were movie stars all over the place. And now it's just a bunch of people that you might know their name, but they're not really anything more than just celebrities. It's interesting how the times have changed. But speaking of Cruise, I want to mention something. I want to talk about something real quick, because Top Gun Maverick's here coming out, and Amanda's not here, so we don't have to hear about what a stuntman he is. We can actually have a conversation about the Cruise. I would say he is the longest running movie star in Hollywood, at least to this date, right? He's the only one from the 80s still making huge movies now. Can we agree on that?
Yes, I agree.
I agree.
Okay. So my question is, so many people loathe him, but obviously he's also beloved because his movies still sell tickets. So do you think it's fair? Because there's a lot of actors that have a lot of weird things, a lot of weird beliefs. So, and I feel like he gets kind of a raw deal just because he's into Scientology and that's his baby. But I've never seen any other actor, or I haven't seen many other actors be as engaging, energetic, seemingly thrilled to be making movies as him. And I constantly hear praise from people that worked with him. I was just listening to Smartlist, and I'm not going to plug it. I don't want to plug another podcast, but that's a great one. And with Jason Bateman and Will Arnett and Sean Hayes, and they interviewed John Hamm. And John Hamm brings up how great, randomly, working with Tom Cruise is, because he's the first guy there and he's the last guy to leave. He cares more about that movie than anybody else in the production. And I think that is worth acknowledging, instead of constantly kind of crapping on, even though we made jokes about Thetans and Xenu and everything else. I mean, we're talking about our love for movies, and I don't know many people that love making movies as much as he does. So why do people insist on kind of hating him? Do we have any theories on this? It can't just be Scientology.
It's just Scientology.
You think so? Really?
100%.
You know, this goes back to, you got to be careful as to how much of, for celebrities, you got to be careful as to how much of your ass you show in certain realms. And the whole, him going on Oprah and jumping up and down on the couch about him being in love and making this whole big show, he turned himself into a meme and turned himself into a joke. And it was poorly executed ways of him. I think at the time he was trying to combat some image from the whole Scientology thing anyways. So it was just like really crazy. He seemed really manic and was able to make himself a joke by that way. And, then you have the Leah Remini stuff come out with, the Searching for Scientology, or whatever her show is, about pointing out whatever's wrong with Scientology. And in today's day and age, it's really hard to disassociate people from the thing that's really scary and hurting people that's out there, especially if they're someone who is out and proud about it. So you have so many different small factors that make it easy to hate him. What makes it really easy to love him is the fact that he's honestly, I think, a great actor. I just recently sat down and watched War of the Worlds again, and he's kind of a detestable shit and through the majority of that movie. And Live, Die, and Repeat, I've watched that again recently. Again, a detestable kind of prick, but he grows into something that's bigger and better than himself, and selfless in a lot of ways. And seeing him make that trip is pretty great. The thing that I like about him in not so much the first two Mission Impossibles, but every Mission Impossible since, is that they make jokes about how he's like nearly a super soldier, and anytime you turn around, he's got this look on his face like, I'm going to die right now. I'm going to die right now. And those brief little moments that of him checking in with reality to be like, this should not work. You can see that whole process kind of happen if you're paying attention. And these are great little things that someone who's great at their craft can throw into there. So I see it both ways. I think it's my theme of the whole show. I can see things both ways.
I just would love to see more Far and Away, more Born on the 4th of July, Rain Man.
He really did stop doing all of those, didn't he? He really has
just
the last
stopped.
decade.
Yeah, he really did.
Yeah.
Like he's a really good actor. Jerry Maguire, right? Really good actor. Like, why are you just not going there and trying to put yourself back in the Oscar conversation? Why are you just taking the easy stuff and labeling yourself as a stuntman rather than an actor?
Do you think he's scared about, because he almost lost everything? I mean, all of his fame, everything else. And I'm sure Xenu almost kicked him out, if he's not number one or whatever. But do you think he's just scared that it's going to be a situation where it comes back if he does too many things that aren't guaranteed hits, it's going to go back to the jumping on the couch time where people stopped going to his movies because they thought he was kind of a lunatic.
I mean, that says a lot more about him and his ego than it does anything else. If you don't take a chance on something that could be extraordinary, if he's so dedicated to the craft as John Hamm and everybody else is saying that he is, then put your heart and soul into something that says something, not just a, cookie cutter summer blockbuster action flick. Put your money where your mouth is. Maybe even do a movie on Scientology. Prove people wrong.
Like Battlefield Earth.
Do something in that regard, right? It
didn't work out for Travolta. On the flip side of this
I like
whole
what Troy's
equation,
saying, though. I like it. I'm sorry.
I mean, you don't. I
like
don't
what he's
grow
saying
unless you take a
too.
chance. And right now, Tom Cruise has not grown in probably 5 to 10 years. That's why he's kind of like stagnant.
Well, on the flip side of this conversation, though, it's what if the thing you're missing is that it's not that he's afraid to do the think piece or the deep piece. What if he reached a point in his life where he realized that there's only so much time left in me to be able to do the crazy stuff, the big stuff, and there's so much more time after that to be able to do the think pieces and the intense pieces and the more artistic pieces. So why don't I make the best I can of it? And first, let's all admit, for a human specimen, he's pretty much like, it's like The Rock and Tom Cruise are ridiculous as far as, specimens for humanity is what they can do with their bodies. There's no reason for, what is he, 55, 56?
60.
Is that how old?
Yeah, 60.
Tom Cruise is 60.
On the 4th of July, he will be 60 years old. Or the 3rd of July.
Okay, so he's 60 years old, and he can probably outrun all three of us. He can probably outbike all three of us.
Well, maybe not me.
I'm going to say, Troy, stop it, okay? You've only been biking for a year. He can probably do it in a second.
2.5.
Like, hey, this is really easy.
Have you seen Tom Cruise without a shirt on? I don't think you really. Yeah, I think he can take you. I think he can take.
Yeah,
he's got little tiny legs. He won't be able to keep up.
He's got little tiny legs. Jesus.
So anyhow, my point is that he's turning 60. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, 60. Yep. He's right.
All right. Anyhow,
I had to check it too while we're talking because I'm like, no way. Oh yeah, he is.
He's 60.
Yeah,
and
my point still stands. Like he's turning 60, and we're probably not going to see him be the Ethan Hunt of current ages after this Ethan Hunt movie. He'll probably be like Ethan Hunt in a wheelchair or something after these series of movies, and let somebody else finally take over. Or if it's not the end of Mission Impossible, which I feel like we're going to see the end of Mission Impossible.
It is. He said these are the last two movies. He's making 2 more movies, and that's it. He's
part
done.
1 and part 2.
Right. Yep. He's probably like, because I broke my leg jumping building the building and it didn't look fun, so I'm not going to do that again.
Maybe, but you got to remember, like, he used to do a balance, right? He used to do the think piece, the artsy, a little bit more dramatic fare, and then he would complement that with an action blockbuster set piece, da 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 da. And he, Troy's right. He hasn't been challenging himself in probably a decade. I mean, Jack Reacher was a thriller. That's probably the most outside the box he's been in a long time, and that's pretty much in his wheelhouse.
Right. But I'm going to go back to my previous theory, which is he reached a point where he was like, I am in the best physical shape I'm going to ever be. It is only downhill from here. Let me milk this for as much as I can for the next few years. And then I can go back to doing the things, because he doesn't have to prove himself by doing the think pieces. He doesn't have to prove himself by doing the art movies. He doesn't have to prove himself by doing the Born on the 4th of July stuff. He's already done all those things. So he can just kind of have fun and enjoy the ride for as long as he can until he has to do the Jack Nicholson route.
Or the Donald Sutherland route.
Or the Donald Sutherland route. I don't think
Tom Cruise is ever going to have to do the Donald Sutherland route. But I should mention, since we're talking about movie stars and people elevating, Vin Diesel, who I do not think is a movie star because he's not successful in anything outside of Fast Furious series. But Alan Ritchson, you guys remember, was on our show. He was on our podcast a few months back when Reacher was coming out. And he's also, there's great YouTube. If you want to see it on YouTube, it's on YouTube as well. And if you're a Patreon supporter, you get a longer extended one if you go back there. So there you go. There's a little incentive. But Alan Ritchson, great guy. I had a wonderful conversation with him. I had private conversation with him. Wonderful guy. He's a genuine talent and, more importantly, a genuine guy.
who's been working very, very hard in Hollywood, and finally he's exploding, right? But he's going to be in Fast X. I literally, before we shot this, saw a video with Vin Diesel and him just kind of talking about the shoot and how Vin Diesel likes to do those videos on set or whatever. And Alan Ritchson, he also just got a 3-picture deal with Amazon recently. I'm just very, very happy for someone that seems, by every conversation I met with him a couple times, and he just is such a genuine guy. I'm just so happy to see people like that get rewarded. So I just want to mention, shout out to Alan Ritchson. Congratulations, man. And Reacher season 2 is coming next year. So even better.
I was going to say, I love Alan. I was just trying to figure out, how did Alan tie to Vin Diesel, tie to Tom Cruise, tie to movie star?
Vin Diesel, not a movie star, but kind of a movie star-ish. He's adjacent. Movie star adjacent. Is that a thing? Should
what
be.
Sells the Fast and the Furious movies then? Is it the content of the Fast and Furious movies, or is it Vin Diesel?
But he's not selling tickets outside of that. Maybe on a global scale, but here in the U.S. he doesn't.
Well, Tom Cruise isn't selling tickets outside of Mission Impossible or Top Gun currently.
Well, he hasn't made anything outside Mission Impossible or Top Gun in a while.
Neither is Vin Diesel. I'm just saying.
Oh my God. He did too. He did Triple X.
We should put
Go ahead.
We should put an asterisk at the end of this whole section by saying that we do realize that we are primarily talking from an American point of view, an American.
I'm looking at it I'm looking at it globally. I'm looking at it globally. Global box office. Globally, Tom Cruise is a massive movie star. Globally,
I'm looking at it globally. Okay. I mentioned Michelle Yeoh.
Okay.
Yeah, John. We know you don't understand globally because Michelle Yeoh is huge. But anyway, continue. Sorry. Finish your sentence.
I'm going to finish my sentence because I was in the middle of a thought, and before I lose it, damn it.
Crap, it's gone.
It worked, Troy. Good job.